Good day. It's JJ MMA. Today we are going to be discussing some fights to make after UFC 328, starting with the winner of the main event and ending with some significant matchups that we had on the prelims. And we're not going to be doing all of the fighters on the prelims. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to be covering all the fighters on this card and their next fights to make. So if you're here to see Jim Miller's next matchup, I think you're at the wrong video. However, we're going to cover some important ones, starting with the winner of the main event, Sean Strickland, baby. What is next for Sean Strickland? That is the question, and that's the question that I'm happy to be asking myself. So I went through a few guys. There's a few guys that Sean Strickland hasn't faced yet, like a Caio Borralho, but he's not. Apparently, he's like boys with Caio Borralho or something, so he's not going to fight him. Joe Pyfer, he hasn't fought the big Philly Joe Pyfer. Um, and I mean, other than that, he's already fought most of the guys in the middleweight division and pretty much all the guys at the top, except for, Joe Pyfer and Caio. And apparently he doesn't want to fight Caio because I think he trains with Caio. I mean, I don't think, no, Caio obviously doesn't go to Extreme Couture with Sean Strickland and with Chris Curtis. But I don't know, there's some like friendship reason why Sean Strickland can't fight Caio. So, this is the clear matchup to make, I think. We're not doing DDP Strickland 3. I think you match up DDP with someone else. And yeah, I'll talk about that in another video as well. But Sean Strickland, I think that the clear match to make is Strickland versus Mavlov. And the reason I say that is because, even though they've already fought and Strickland beat him on 2 weeks' notice, I mean, and this isn't really an intriguing fight because I think Strickland wins again. However, Mavlov is improved. He's earned his title shot. He has been kind of sitting on the sideline and doing nothing. However, and like not making a name for himself. However, he deserves it. He's knocked out Adesanya. He dominated Caio Borralho over a 5-round decision, 4-1. I think almost had Caio Borralho finished a few times in that fight. So, Mavlov deserves the title shot for sure. And yeah, he deserves to have it against Strickland. Strickland even said that Mavlov was next in the post-fight press conference. He jumped right back. He's going to be jumping right back in there, giving his nose some time to heal, and then supporting Alex Pereira at the White House. And then after that, he's gonna get right back in there as soon as he can. So, we're gonna have an active champion, and Khamzat is finally out of here. So we will finally have an active champion at middleweight after Khamzat's short-lived reign. And yeah, it feels like the DDP days are back. Life is good again. Can't wait for DDP to get the title back. You know what I'm saying? I like Strickland and DDP equally, but both guys are super fun fighters for me. Even though Strickland's style is kind of just controlling the pace and jabbing deep into decision. Both of those guys are some of my favorite fighters. But anyways, yeah, this is the fight to make, and I'll be happy to see Strickland defending his title in the main event, and I think he gets this one done. I just hopefully Mavlov doesn't win, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, we move on to who I think Khamzat's gonna fight, and honestly, there's no clear match for Khamzat at 205. You know what I'm saying? I already have kind of these dance partners matched up for the top guys at 205. Yeah, and I mean he's boys with Khalil Roundtree. He trains with Khalil Roundtree. I mean, he's being confusing right now because he says he's gonna move up to 205. That was his last fight at 185. However, there's still a lot of fights for him at 205. So, there's definitely still some interesting fights for Khamzat Chimaev at 205. He says he wants the rematch with Strickland though for some reason, even though he says he wants to move up to 205. Like, make up your mind, bro. But yeah, I mean, if he wants the rematch with Strickland, I think that's honestly the next fight to make. I would rather do Strickland versus Chimaev 2 rather than this, I'm more interested in the Strickland-Chimaev rematch than this, to be honest with you. Because, like, regardless of, I think Strickland very clearly won the fight, but it was still a close fight. I'll give Chimaev that. He did do pretty decent on the feet with Strickland. He did better on the feet than Adesanya did against Strickland. And I know styles make fights, but Khamzat's got like this kind of Soviet boxing style mixing in, his own MMA stuff, like the overhand that he throws the wrestlers overhand, and the kicks, the good body kicks that he has. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't throwing those against Strickland because he was pushing forward, whereas Strickland was just beating him off the back foot. But anyways, I'm off my breakdown of the fight now. The next opponent that I think that you have for Khamzat Chimaev will be at 205, and it's gonna be either like I matched up in my most I think my most recent prediction, yeah, my most recent predictions video. Go check that out on the channel. I matched up Yuri and Jan Blachowicz, but if these guys don't end up fighting each other, I think that Khamzat could fight either of these guys at 205. I think that the more interesting matchup would be Yuri, even though Yuri's not as good in the grappling as Jan. Jan dominated Adesanya in the grappling, and I know Adesanya's like not a grappling first guy, but Adesanya still has really good takedown defense. But once you get him on the ground, he is kind of a sitting duck. Um, yeah, Khamzat. I think Khamzat takes on either of these guys or the winner of these guys if they fight each other. I would like to see I would be interested in seeing Yuri versus Jan at like a Madison Square Garden card or an Abu Dhabi card. I both which are going to be pay-per-views later in the year. Yeah, I would like to see Yuri and Jan get in there around October, November, depending on how Jan's meniscus heals. But if Jan's meniscus isn't able to heal in time, he's 43 years old, so I honestly wouldn't blame the guy if he just retired. But we don't want Jan to retire. We want the big Polish power to stay, because Jan's entertaining fighter. He's kind of like a Volkov of light heavyweight, and that's he's cool in his own way. So if Jan's not available, I would say Khamzat versus Yuri at 205 and get Khamzat in there. Maybe not. The reason that I say he could fight the winner of these guys is because Khamzat's not very active. He's gonna take some time off. So yeah, I think that either the winner of these guys or probably Yuri is the most likely matchup to make here for Khamzat Chimaev at 205. Yeah, we move on to the winner of the co-main event, Joshua Van, who's really earned my respect and is a true champion now. He is a sick fighter. Joshua Van is a badass fighter. The only thing that I haven't liked about him so far in his career is how he got up on the cage like a little gnome and started beating his chest and celebrating after Pantoja broke his arm. And I understand, life-changing money and stuff, but I don't think that you shouldn't be beating your chest on top of the cage for injuring your opponent. I mean, obviously you're supposed to injure your opponent in a fight, but I mean, when you win the belt in that way, you shouldn't be celebrating like this up on the cage and getting up on the cage like that. So anyways, off of that rant, I think that the immediate matchup to make is, this is a very easy matchup to make. And yeah, Van versus Pantoja, the rematch. You saw in the cage, we all saw in the cage, when Van called out Pantoja, he's like, we can run it back if you want. He's like, get your shit right, Pantoja. We can run it back if you want. So that's quote unquote what Van said to Pantoja, and Pantoja gave him a look like what? You think I don't want to run it back? Come on, that's easy work for me. Come on now. But anyway, Van is not easy work. But I do think that Pantoja is a lot better of a grappler than Tatsuro Taira. Yeah, and I think he's a lot better on the feet than Tatsuro Taira. Taira in that fight had this weird perception of range where he was he had his hands down. He had his hands down in boxing range. He had his hands down in boxing range with Joshua Van, and he wasn't moving his head at all. If he had his hands down that close, then you should be moving your head. You should be slipping and rolling and getting out of the way and using your footwork. Taira has good footwork, but he doesn't use it with his boxing defense. So he should Taira needs to get back in the lab, work on his boxing defense. Obviously after he heals up, because he took one hell of an ass whooping in that fight with Joshua Van. But, Pantoja, this is the clear fight to make. Pantoja seems to be healthy now. He's full striking, he's full sparring. He says he's ready. He said he was ready in case, somebody stepped out of the fight for UFC 328. And yeah, this is the clear fight to make. I would favor Pantoja in this one still, just because Pantoja is better on the feet. He does have a granite chin. And I know Tatsuro Taira also has a granite chin, and he's a really tough guy. But, Pantoja's not going to be getting hit as much as Taira was in that fight. He's and I know some people might be in my comments saying, oh, but Pantoja had a close fight with Usyk. Pantoja's gotten so much better since then, even as he's getting older. And that's very impressive for a flyweight, by the way. I think Pantoja's like a 36-year-old flyweight. This is an old picture right here, But Pantoja has like I met him in person. I was like a foot like I was literally inches away from Alessandro Pantoja, and he has like gray hair on his beard, gray hair on his head. So Pantoja's an old guy. He's getting up there in age, but he's only getting better with age. And I don't think this arm injury set him back much. Just it was a dislocation, dislocated elbow, and then he was working every day at it. He was working on the bag every day that he could, persevering through his injuries. So yeah, I'll be really excited to see Pantoja, one of our favorite fighters. We will get the belt back. I'm really excited to get him back in there. And yeah, against a tough test like Joshua Van, and Joshua Van is a sick fighter. I am apologizing to Joshua Van after getting. I was a little bit frustrated with Joshua Van after he fluked our boy Pantoja, but it's okay. Joshua Van is a sick fighter. Anyways, there we go. We move on. And this is the loser of the co-main event, Tatsuro Taira. He needs to take some time off, first of all. And I think that the time off, is going to put him in a perfect position to fight one of these guys. And it's the winner of the UFC Vegas, I think, 118. No, this is 119. I'm pretty sure 119. UFC Vegas 119. June 20th, the main event. I don't know why it's in the Apex, but it's Cop versus Horiguchi. And yeah, I think that this is the winner of this should fight Taira for a title elimination fight. I think maybe not in the near future, but eventually Taira will probably end up rematching Van for the belt if Van beats if Van beats Pantoja, or this would be a clear title elimination fight if Pantoja beats Van in the rematch. So the winner of this versus Taira would be next up for the title. Had Pantoja will not Pantoja blended the names together. If Pantoja beats Van in the rematch, this is the clear title elimination fight. Cop versus Horiguchi. Cop has some monstrous power for flyweight, and that worries me against somebody who's hands down a lot. However, Kyoji Horiguchi, he has good head movement. He has a better Japanese boxing style than Tatsuro Taira. Taira could learn a thing or two from Kyoji Horiguchi. But the winner of this and last time these guys fought, this is the rematch between Cop and Horiguchi. Horiguchi won, but that was when Cop was in his tadpole phase of MMA. So this will be an interesting one. I'll drop the predictions when the fight comes around. But yeah, this is the next fight to make for Taira. Take some time off, Taira. Yeah, he deserves it. He deserves the time off after that war. And Taira's a super tough dude. He came all that way. He wanted to get the belt for Japan, and he fell short. But it's okay. We are still Tatsuro Taira. We still love Tatsuro Taira. And yeah, we move on to who I think Volkov should be fighting. Now, I mean, I just can't put the amount of possibilities of who he could be fighting in here because it would be, it would be three guys I would have to put in here, and that would eliminate my webcam over here. So, yeah, it could either be Aspinall or Gon. Worst possibility would be Gon or Pereira. Yeah, he just needs to fight for the belt next. He's got no other matchups that he needs to take on. I don't think he would need to take on a Josh Huckett or anything. Huckett could very well jump the line just because of, how marketable he is. Whereas Volkov's just, the humble Russian guy. And I know he had almost a little scuffle with Waldo Cortes Acosta at the weigh-in. But, it was like a lighthearted thing. He wasn't even trying to do anything. Waldo just has anger issues. But, yeah, whoever it is with the belt, Volkov needs to fight him. That's enough said. I don't think I need to describe anything else. Yeah, I already broke down his fight with Waldo in my breakdown video, even though it was a little rushed. But yeah, because I had to do something for Mother's Day. But yeah, Volkov fights for whoever has the belt. And yeah, we move on. Well, yeah, and Volkov will be sitting out for almost a year, and that's okay because he deserves the title shot next and nothing else. Yeah, okay. Anyways, we move on to the loser of this fight, Waldo Cortes Acosta, and he fights Josh Huckett, and I say this because no matter what, Josh Huckett, I think Josh Huckett is either 100% going to be. Actually, I can't say 100%. You know what? I can't say 100% because there always is the chance that Derek Lewis just bombs him out cold with like one of his slipping left hooks. Where he's falling down, throws a left hook. One of Derek Lewis's power shots could very well knock out Josh Huckett, and I know he just beat he just beat Curtis Blades, and Curtis Blades is a much more coordinated and athletic fighter than Derek Lewis. Um, but yeah, I mean at the same time, it's just like there's always the chance. You can never bet on or against Derek Lewis. So I think regardless, I think that Josh Huckett has like a 90% chance to beat Derek Lewis at the White House. And if slash when he does, I think that the clear next fight to make is a step up the ranking to the number 4 spot, and it's Waldo Cortes Acosta. You know, Waldo and Huckett are very on a very similar skill level. He's very athletic. He's a strong guy. He was almost able to track down Volkov with some of his overhands. And when he started to land a few, I was getting scared for Volkov because Volkov has been chinned before by Derek Lewis, by some other guys. He is 40-11. He is 40-11. Volkov is 40-11 after all. So he's taken some cumulative damage over his career. So I was worried when Waldo started winging those big overhands. But regardless, Hokit versus Waldo Cortes Acosta, number 4 versus number 5. I think that this makes a lot of sense. Hawkett's been talking some shit. I mean, who hasn't Hawkett been talking shit about? But he has been talking a big game about Waldo Cortes Acosta. And yeah, I think that this is the fight to make. This is the fight to make once Hawkett gets that win on the White House lawn. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's inevitable that he wins. And I mean, there's a chance that they give him Volkov, but I think that would be stupid for the UFC to do. And I think that this is the fight to make. Moves all this would do is, and I think Hawkett wins this match. By the way, I'll break it down once the fight gets made. But I think that this is very winnable for Hawkett, and all this does is build him up more. All this does is build him up more so he can face a better opponent possibly. Like if he wins this, I would probably put him against a Sergey Pavlovich or something, and then just build him up, see how much you can build Hawkett up before he gets chinned or loses by decision to Volkov, or gets decisioned by Cyril Gane or something. Just like see how far Hawkett can make, see how far he can make it before possibly even earning his way to a title shot. Because Hawkett is a very entertaining fighter. He is good, and I know he didn't wrestle in his last fight against Curtis Blades, but he has really good wrestling, and I think he could probably run Waldo over with some good double legs. But yeah, we move on to the next one, the winner of another fight on the main card, and that's Brady Buckley. The next fight for Sean Brady, and he actually called him out. He called him out, I think in his post-fight interview with Joe Rogan on the mic, and yeah, he called out, and he's like, I know he's not in the top 5, but I'm going to call out Kamaru Usman. And I think that's the fight to make. I think that Brady, and I know Brady's ranked number 6 and Kamaru Usman's ranked number 8, but this is a good kind of title eliminator, kind of top 5 eliminator type of fight in the welterweight division. So, I finally know what to do with Usman. Don't give him Morales. I think Morales versus Process is the fight to make. I know Process is like, I'm going to wait out until I get the title shot. But, I think that Process Morales is the fight to make because after Makhachev Gary, I think they're going to do Ilya versus Makhachev. If there's any wrinkle brains at the UFC front office, or I don't know if it's called the front office, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is the fight to make. Both these guys very good in the wrestling specifically. Sean Brady's obviously got the jiu-jitsu. Kamaru Usman's got the really good wrestling. Yeah, but this is a grappler's matchup, and Usman's better on the feet. Usman's a bigger guy. You want to build up Usman again. I think that this is the match to make because, like wrestlers with hands are a problem with Sean Brady. Like wrestlers with hands are the problem for Sean Brady. And I know like even a guy with like little hands, like not that much hands, like a Bilal Muhammad he's standing TKO. Like people forget, man, Canelo hands Bilal Muhammad standing TKO'd Sean Brady. And I think that if Bilal Muhammad can do that to you, and if Michael Morales can just like seismog you and fluke you out cold, like not fluke, but knock you out cold like that, I think Usman can do some pretty bad things to Sean Brady on the feet, probably in the later rounds, after some wrestling exchanges. So yeah, I'll talk about my prediction more once the fight gets booked, but this is the clear fight to make for me, in my opinion. Sean Brady versus Kamaru Usman. And you might think, oh, I already scrolled to it, but Joaquin Buckley, I think that he gets JDM, and this may not be a logical matchup to make rankings wise, but Yeah, originally I matched up Sean Brady I matched up the winner of Sean Brady and Joaquin Buckley with JDM. But I mean since Usman didn't have anybody, and obviously we're not gonna put Usman versus Buckley against each other again. That doesn't make any sense. Um, I think that the fight to make for JDM is JDM versus Joaquin Buckley. Maybe a lower guy in the rankings, like maybe you put JDM versus like a Mike Malott, someone coming off a win like that. Just in case like that person's boosted up the rankings, whereas Joaquin Buckley, who's coming off 2 losses, is boosted up the rankings if he were to beat JDM, which I don't think would happen in a million years, by the way. I think JDM probably submits Joaquin Buckley at this point. Joaquin Buckley didn't work on grappling at all for a fight with Sean Brady. Like that's the stupidest thing ever. Like how do you not work on like how do you not do that, kid? How do you not work on any grappling when you're going into a fight with Sean Brady? Like he's gonna try to take you down. And initially Joaquin Buckley did a good job at stuffing the takedowns, but once he got to the ground, he was a sitting duck. So I think that the fight to make is JDM versus Buckley. You build up JDM, give him an easier fight, give him a step down in competition. And yeah, I think that's the fight that you make next for Joaquin Buckley. I mean, if you were to do anything else with Joaquin Buckley, maybe feed him to like Yaroslav Amosov at this point. But and then maybe you give JDM like a I don't know, probably like Mike Malott or something. Yeah, I don't know. I can match up the whole welterweight division in a one video if you guys want. But yeah, just let me know if you guys want that in the comments down below. I'm always open to any recommendations. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Let me move my webcam. Sorry guys, my webcam was messed up. I didn't even realize that. Okay, there you go. We move on to King Green. What do I think King Green's next fight is? And I think that we just follow the cycle of life, and it has to happen. King Green versus Terrence McKinney. Hydrogen, in other words, coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb. And this has to happen. Like the King Green cycle is, oh he's beating these unranked guys, like the better unranked guys. He's stringing together a few wins. Oh, why don't we test him against somebody who's a prospect? Boom, he's out. Boom, he's out cold. And then he takes a little bit of time off. Oh, and then he starts building himself back up again. Boom, he's out cold. He's out cold. you know. So I think that you do T-Rex right here versus King Green. And like there is still a decent chance that King Green could win this fight because Terrence McKinney is kill or be killed. King Green does he does do a good job of slipping out of the way of shots. He does kind of he does do these lineal retreats. He backs up in a straight line sometimes, and that puts him in a bad position for a wrecking ball like Terrence McKinney to go out there and slime him out. And if he gets hit on the chin a few times by Terrence McKinney, I think he's going out cold. And we love Bobby Green over here, but it just has to happen. This is the Bobby Green cycle, and yeah, we're just gonna follow the flow of nature and let nature take its course on Bobby Green here. But yeah, that's what I think about Bobby Green's next matchup. We got 2 more left. We're gonna go Ateba Gautier and Yaroslav Amosov. And yeah, so we move on to what I think Ateba Gautier's next matchup is. I think that this one's kind of a no-brainer. He called him out in the octagon, and this is like perfect. I think you could do this as like a main event of a fight night, or something on a main card of a pay-per-view, not a pay-per-view, but a number card. And yeah, this is a passing of the torch, Africa to Africa, and I think that you do Adesanya versus Ateba Gautier, and like I mean, I guess you could put you could you could still try to build Ateba Gautier up and put him against a better unranked middleweight, like maybe try Ateba Gautier versus like Mansour Abdul Malik or something. That could be a good look. If you want to keep giving him unranked fighters, just give him unranked fighters that are better. Maybe give him Vettori. That would be pretty funny. The immovable object in Marvin Vettori's chin versus the unstoppable force of Ateba Gautier's right hand. That would be very interesting. So I mean, I think that this would be a good passing of the torch fight. However, this is very one-sided. I think Ateba Gautier absolutely slimes out Adesanya at this point in his career. He's just too big for Adesanya, and Adesanya's chin is Adesanya's chin has taken some hits, man, and it's really starting to show. Even though Adesanya doesn't react that badly when he gets hit, as well. I mean, he doesn't look like he's not wobbly or anything, but he just starts to slowly move backwards and like let Joe Pyfer take over the fight. You know what I'm saying? Um, I'm sure he'll fight a good one, maybe 1.5 rounds against Ateba Gautier, but eventually Ateba Gautier is gonna find the shot, put him out cold. But we'll save the prediction, even though I kind of just gave you it for when the fight is made, as always. And yeah, last one. I think that for Yaroslav Amosov is very, very good. Yaroslav Amosov, he's very good. He's an entertaining grappler. He is what the welterweight division. He's another unstoppable force in the welterweight division, and he's 30-1, and he's entering his prime at he's 30-1, and he's entering his prime with 31 MMA fights. He's entering his prime at 32 years old, and I think that we give him a little boost up the rankings into the top 10. And I think that this guy's going to lose to Bilal Muhammad, and that's Gabriel Bonfim. I think that Gabriel Bonfim will get dominated via a boring decision by Bilal Muhammad at the glorious UFC Apex. And yeah, I think that after that, I think that you give him Yaroslav Amosov, relatively quick turnaround, maybe for the Serbia card, something like that. Probably, not the Serbia card. I just realized how soon that is. That's less than 2 months. So probably for like an Abu Dhabi card or something international. Maybe the France. I know they usually go to France in September, so maybe honestly on that card, and that's 3 months turnaround from Bonfim. I don't think Bonfim will take much damage in the fight with Bilal. But yeah, I think that Bonfim versus Yaroslav Amosov is the next jump up for Amosov, and yeah, it's a jump from he's ranked number 14 right now, so it would be the jump from number 14 to number 10. As of now, obviously the rankings are very much subject to change. But yeah, I mean this would be a good test for Yaroslav Amosov. Gabriel Bonfim is still dangerous. He's 19-1 himself. But yeah, this is another sick fight to make in the welterweight division. And as I recently mentioned earlier in the video, if you guys want me to make a video matching up the welterweight division, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, make sure to comment other video suggestions for me. These are the fights that I think should be made after UFC 328. Like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.